Okay, so welcome back. Okay, so now we're going to do an example, and we're going to use those formulas to help us figure out what the how to calculate these things, these trig functions. So notice that each one of these examples, or each one of these angles, are going to put this in a certain quadrant. Okay, so this tells you which quadrant this angle is in, and then from there we're going to use the proper formula to find the reference angle. Okay, so for the first one we have sine of 160 degrees. Okay, and that puts us in the second quadrant. Okay, so this is sine in the second quadrant. So that means we're going to subtract this from 180 to get our reference angle. Okay, so this is going to be, now again, it's positive, right? So we got to make sure that it's sine, it's in the second quadrant, so it's positive. So this is going to be positive sine of what? It's going to be 180 minus 160 to get our reference angle, right? We're trying to get our reference angle. So in this case, it's going to be sine of 20 degrees. Okay, and then you can stick that in your calculator, and you find that it is 0.3420. Okay, so there's our angle, okay? Or there's our sine. Now tangent. Now 110 degrees is in the quadrant 2 again, okay? So we want tangent of the reference angle, and tangent is what value is tangent? Okay, well, tangent is what? It's opposite over adjacent, right? And in this case, opposite is negative, or excuse me, positive, but the adjacent is negative. So this is going to be negative. So this is going to be negative tangent of the reference angle, right? Because our reference angle is always going to end up being in the first quadrant, right? So, but we want the negative of tangent of what? This is going to be 180 minus 110. And so this is going to be negative tangent of 70 degrees. And so this is going to be negative 2.747. Okay? So now is this starting to make sense to you? I hope it is. So now cosine 225. Well, that puts us in the third quadrant. Well, cosine, what sign does cosine have in quadrant 3? Well, in quadrant 3, it's going to be negative. Right? So in there, it's going to be negative cosine, and then we need to find our reference angle, right? So in this case, it's going to be what? It's in the third quadrant, which means that we're going to take our reference angle and we're going to subtract off 180. So this is going to be 225 minus 180 to get our reference angle. And so now our reference angle is going to be 45. So it's going to be negative cosine of 45 degrees. And so that's going to be 1 over the square root of 2. Okay, but it's going to be, obviously, if we put it in our calculator, we'll get 0.7071. Or, if you want the exact value, it would be 1 over the square root of 2, negative 1 over the square root of 2. Okay, now what about cotangent? Well, cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. And sine, well, okay, never mind, we're doing sine again here. So these are just reciprocal. So they're going to have the same signs as their as their reciprocals, right? So now, so cotangent 260 degrees. Now 260 degrees is again in the third quadrant. So we're going to subtract 180 from this to get our reference angle. Okay, now tangent is negative, or excuse me, tangent is positive in the third quadrant, so cotangent is also positive. So this is going to be cotangent of 260 minus 180, okay, degrees of course. And so this is going to be cotangent of what? 80 degrees. And so cotangent of 80 degrees is 0.1763. Now secant is 1 over cosine. So cosine, again, this is now in the fourth quadrant. Cosine in the fourth quadrant is negative. So secant is also negative. Or hold on, wait a minute. Hold on, wait. Cosine. Oh, I'm sorry, no. Cosine is positive in the fourth quadrant. So is secant. Okay, so then this becomes secant. Now in the fourth quadrant, we're going to take 360 minus the angle. Okay, so we're going to take 360 Is that right? 360. Yeah. So 360 minus the angle, 304, which gives us a secant of 56 degrees. And then we're going to put that in our calculator, and we get 1.788. And then finally, sine of 357. Now this again is in the third quadrant, and sine is negative in the fourth quadrant. Okay? So now this is going to be negative sine. Now we're going to subtract this from 360, so it's going to be 360 minus 357. Why are we doing this? We're just trying to get the reference angle, right? So negative sine of 360 minus 357, that's going to be negative sine of 3 degrees. And so what do we get? We get negative 0.0523. And that's how you do it. Have a great day.